The time has come, my friends, for you to go to work.
Once upon a time, a city girl named Felicity and a city boy named Peter bought and moved into an abandoned 1830s farmhouse in New York. Welcome back to our first spring at our farmhouse. Spring came early to the Finger Lakes district this year, and it threw us off. We had a plan for the yard, which, of course, in the springtime is the primary focus of attention on a new property. And our plan was to plant a lot of clover and 6-inch tall zinnias in such proliferation that mowing would be unnecessary. There were only two obstacles to this brilliant plan. A, we had gotten some firewood delivered a couple of weeks previously, and we're still in the process of moving it to our firewood platform. And B, none of the construction trash around the house had been picked up, and I desperately wanted to do that before we seeded the yard.
If you look kind of this way, you think, what trash pickup? There's nothing to be seen here. But if you start to look down, you'll see that there's little bits of trash all over. There's a bit of wood, there's a bit of plastic, there are cigarette butts, there's a piece of plastic over there. There's just a lot of trash around here.
So we made a plan to accomplish both of those objectives in what we thought would be fairly short order. And you know what? At first, the plan was going really well.
I've been working on trash pickup. The problem is you can't tell, but just for reference, the entire driveway has been picked up with trash, which is something I did today. That glade back there is something that I did a week ago when my dad was here. And then the big emphasis for today was to get this front area clear. Everything east of the boardwalk has been picked clean, and this entire front lawn, all the way up to the road and all the way down to the old well, has been picked clean. Again, you can't really see any difference. I can show you evidence that I have, in fact, been picking up trash. This is all of the stuff, the pipes that you see were in here before, but otherwise, this is all the stuff that I picked up. Quite a lot of cigarette butts. I found an a light switch. And then also over here, I found a couple of jaw bones with teeth in them that Peter and I believe are real bones, and maybe were dog bones or something like that. They certainly weren't big enough to be people. So that was exciting. Peter made a huge dent in the wood pile stack. We now have two wood pile stacks over there instead of one. And this pile is half gone. Welcome back to a breezy, I have to say, a summer day here at the end of April. It is just before the turn of calendar to May, and it is 78 degrees outside. I mean, this is summer. Her lips are like red roses fair. These are on some of the firewood that was delivered, and they're markers that have kind of grown into the tree. And so, see if I can do this here. Baby Crow and I are getting underneath these and prying them off. And like Baby Crow and I are going to do great things together. It rained earlier today, and the rain is still on that window pane, and it's catching the late gold light, and it looks like the window is coated in gold. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
Between the rain and my work schedule, I wasn't able to get as much done today as I wanted. However, I will say the rain made a big difference in the temperature, which was great, and I got about half of the remaining pile moved. As you can see, I can no longer get the cart up the main alley of the firewood platform, so it's a little bit longer, but it was a very productive day and an absolutely glorious evening. So my brilliant plan is moving along brilliantly. Trash is being picked up, firewood is being stacked, and the calendar turned over to May and everything stopped because it rained. And it rained.
Rain totally did in the last of the tulips down here. I'm sorry, tulips.
And it rained. In fact, it rained for 7 days straight, and we had so much rain that our seasonal stream overflowed its banks.
Usually, this is just a little trickle, and it's about a half to a third as wide. And it's just, look at that. And there's a little dam backed up here. It was actually worse. This morning, there was water. Oh, I see a giant shard of glass. You can see there was water going all the way down here that's since kind of dried up. There's a whole channel here, and then there's a channel coming there, and then the main channel there where it's frothing, and it's going mostly through. That's the actual channel there, and this is the what I summarized was the Slauson cutoff. And as you can see, yeah, there's a lot of water there. So we have some work to do here along the riverbank.
So it did dry out after a few days, but we had a lot of rain in May, and there were many times when the great trash pickup was interrupted by something just like this.
I double checked the weather last night before I went to bed to make sure the plan to work outside today was going to hold. I checked it this morning before I put the laundry out on the line to make sure that the forecast was still dry and cloudy. This was not in the forecast for today.
And while we really needed the rain because we got maybe 2 light dustings of snow over the winter, it did put a damper in the already behind schedule great trash pickup.
As you can see, a lot of stuff has sprouted here, which is not great for our plans for this area.
With the grass growing every day, I pushed myself flat out to pick up the trash as quickly as possible. About now, you may be asking yourself the same question I asked myself. Why am I spending all of this time when I need to get on planting things in the yard? And just like you thoroughly weed before you plant, I strongly believed and still believe, even after all this work, that the more cleanup and pickup that can be done in the first year or years we're on the property, the better it's going to be overall, right? There'll just be less and less stuff to pick up going forward. And also, once I get started on a project, it is really difficult to get me to stop until it is finished to my desired satisfaction.
Fine creatures like these are the reason I didn't want to just shovel everything up wholesale. I have found so many of them in this patch.
So I was making decent, although not great time on the trash sprint until I hit the backyard, and then everything came to a grinding halt. So this is by far the worst part of the property. It is where our construction crew threw everything out the kitchen window, and as you can see, it is a mess. And this is where the sprint became more of a slow crawl. I went from being able to do several walking crisscrosses of an area in an hour to digging out this pole taking an hour and a half.
Can you guys see that? It is huge, and they are very interested in the house. I've been hearing them all day. I believe they're carpenter bees, and they are extremely large.
No joke, you guys, those bees were actually the biggest problem with working on the west wall of the house. As soon as the sun hit that wall, they were all over it all day, every day. And I understand they're not aggressive. I understand they don't sting unless provoked. They're huge, they're noisy, they like to fly around my head. I was stung several times by wasps and bees last summer as we were moving out of Tulsa, and once when we got here to New York. And I really do not like being around bees. So of all the tasks that were associated with this trash pickup marathon, this was the one that actually felt the most nerve-inducing to me and the one that I had to time the most carefully.
I don't know if I've been doing a great job at doing a before shot. So here is the before shot. I have actually already, when my dad was here a month ago, one morning when he was out here working, I sat here and I picked up quite a lot of glass, and there's even more to pick up. Ta 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 ta. The backyard is as debris-free as it's gonna be. Oh my gosh, you guys, I feel so good. I feel so good, and it looks so much better. I know it still looks a little higgledy-piggledy probably on camera. You used to be able to look down and see bits of wood and bits of plastic and glass shards catching the light, and at least it looks none of those things now.
A friend once described to me the section of The Lord of the Rings where Frodo and Samwise are on the way to Mordor as, we went up a hill, it hurts, it hurts. We went down a hill, it hurts, it hurts. This sprint to get that part of the yard cleaned up feels like that to me. And I promise you, for the footage that you saw, there are 4 times the amount of footage of me making an estimate as to what I was going to get done each day and falling woefully short. So between that and the bees, it was a pretty intense rush period. However, there were some interesting and fun discoveries along the way.
I'm sorry that I took away your home. But this, whatever this is, roofing tar, I think, really oughtn't stay where it is. I hope you're able to find somewhere else to go. And thank you to Ruth, who was a previous tenant here. She rented this house. We're not exactly sure when, but we think after 1980. And her son, who I met last week, said that she is the one who planted these tulip bulbs. So thank you very much, Ruth. They are absolutely gorgeous. That definitely looks like an animal bone. And I'm wondering if it's part of the same jaw skeleton that we found way up in the front yard. This would be a great deal away, but if it was picked up and carried by the water, it might be. Or, given all the people who've lived here, there may be more than one pet buried here. I found a couple of these. These are square tiles. I don't know where this is from, but I like the triangular look of it with the white points. And then this, I'm kind of curious. It feels like it must have been a handle. It's heavy. It's ceramic. At first I thought it was part of a broken bottle, but then the inside of it had the ceramic colors. I found this birdhouse at the base of that beautiful tree. We had previously pulled off a feeder, a plastic feeder that was hanging up there, and there is a hook in the trunk. So obviously somebody at some point was doing the bird thing. So as I reached down to pull this out, and we'll get to what this is in a minute, there was motion over here. Can you guys see? Hello, little toad, frog. To be honest with you, I don't know the difference. He's a tiny little guy, a couple inches maybe. Hello, sweetheart. And this, I turned it over and cleaned it off. It's a voltage meter, direct current. Most modern appliances run on alternating current. So this is either very old or for something that is not a house appliance, like some sort of machine that runs on direct current. If you know what it is, or what it might have been used for, please let me know. Well, this is absolutely the biggest thing I've pulled out so far. I believe this is the old vent that was coming out of the dryer shaft before they put the new one in, and it just rolled down the hill and was buried until I dug it out. So there I was, digging up what I thought might be a root, and oh no, it's a chain. A pretty hefty chain. I was digging down here, it went all the way up there, and snaked all the way down there. It looks to be in pretty good shape. And then I kept digging, and right next to it, I found a crowbar. Now, we have baby crow from Dad, but we don't have a regular-sized crowbar, so I think that's winning. Woo! Okay, I was kind of hoping I would find one of these somewhere. It was wrapped around this root right here by the basement door. It's a horseshoe! Oh, I'm so excited about this.
The other thing that kept me sane during this time period was the fun things that happened totally separate from the trash project.
Oh, look at that little face peering over the blanket at me. You are so cute.
We're successful. Right down here in the intake bay are, I guess, thousands of toad eggs.
I also started volunteering at the local community garden, and one of my first tasks was to babysit the asparagus.
You guys, these are so cute. They're these tiny, frothy little fronds. They look absolutely marvelous. Thank you, Mother dear. These look fantastic. Your Monty Don moment totally paid off. These aren't supposed to be here until Monday, but they're here. These are the 4 bookshelves that my friend Sherry Moran brought for us, and I am so excited they're here. And noticing that they need to be moved because they're in the splash zone from our very leaky gutter. Good morning, friends, from what I hope is the last day of trash pickup on this project. We have 4 objectives for the day. One objective is to finish moving the firewood pile over to the firewood rack because, happily, I am now ready to start on trash pickup in this area, which is step number 2, or objective number 2. Once this area is completely picked up, everything around the house will be done. The pickup down by the old barn is going to have to be a separate project because it's too much and this has to be done. So that's the second objective. The third objective should be fairly quick. I need to flip this over. I got a lot of stuff out just going through the slats, but there's a couple of things under there I could not reach. So I need to flip these over and do under there. And then the fourth objective, I have 2 piles of dirt next to where we dug out the post holes. And I need to shovel that up, pick out any trash, and I'm going to use it to fill in where the sewer pipe is coming out of the house, because I will show you. It was buried, clearly not very well, and there's a big divot down there at the bottom, so I figure what better use than to relocate that stuff. It's fairly close as well, which is helpful. So that's the plan. It is just before noon. We have about 8 hours of daylight left. Whether that can all be finished in 8 hours, I do not know. Two hours later, the mounds on either side of the T-post have been reduced back down more or less to ground level. I've started piling some of the bigger rocks around the foundations. And we have filled in, with all 3 of the mounds, we have filled in this big divot in our yard. And you can see I've been making good use of the rocks here as well. Now, whether this will hold long term, I don't know, but at least it looks intentional and designed as opposed to just randomly everywhere. This is objective 3 for the day. The objective is to move all of this over the platform. I gotta tell you guys, it looks a lot bigger up close than it did from my upstairs window. I thought, oh, a few more cartloads and we're done. Yeah, it's more than a few more cartloads. I lost count, but I think I've done 6 or 7 cartloads, which means I'm averaging about 3 cartloads an hour, which is really, really poor efficiency. Well, or at least poor efficiency as opposed to what I imagined it would be. So, new plan for today. We're not going to start any garbage pickup here. It's almost 5 o'clock already. Frankly, if I get this done before dark, I'm going to be thrilled. And we will just tackle the yard another day. I must say that is a gratifyingly small pile compared to what was here when I started this afternoon. So that will feel good. Right now it feels tired, but I think tomorrow it will feel good. Final count for today, 2 objectives completed, 1 objective 80% complete, 1 objective not started.
So throughout this adventure, one of the things that Peter had been asking for was my assistance to reassemble our bed frame. We've been sleeping on a mattress on the floor. Honestly, I have no idea where I found the energy, but when he asked me later this evening if I would put the bed together with him, I said, sure. Never mind the fact that it took us 10 hours to put it together the first time it arrived in Tulsa. Sure, let's start it at 9 o'clock at night. How hard can it be?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're only on step 2, and already we have encountered a challenge. And the challenge is we're putting the guide rails back on for the drawers, and these 2 holes are both completely stripped. So step 2 is complete. We couldn't get these down flush like the other ones are, and that may or may not affect their ability to run the track through there, but only time will tell. There's a lot of hardware in this bed, but I do think it's going faster than the first time that we put it together. The last of the drawers is going in. Yay, drawers! She's looking like a proper bed. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta! 10 weeks after moving in, we finally have a bed frame.
A new throne for the kitty.
Yeah, what do you think, Babaloo? Says, well, I'm so excited that I just have to lick myself immediately.
Does this really meet with your expectations?
Hello, sweetie boy.
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Oh, you're so cute. It's a perfectly lovely 52-degree, breezy This is what I thought spring in New York would feel like day. My goal for today is to finish the wood project. So that is to get all of this wood moved over there. If there's time and energy, because I didn't get as much sleep last night as I wanted to, we're going to start the great yard pickup and we're going to work this way. It's always good to have stretch goals. And notice this time I called it a stretch goal as opposed to an objective, because as we all know, my ability to set objectives has been woefully inadequate on this whole project.
Here we have Felicity loading the very last of our wood as she transports the wood pile from one place to another. Something that has been a multi-day task that we have been working on for some time. Hooray!
This pile here is the small stuff stroke kindling pile, and I'm hoping that it will fit in the shipping crate that we found on the property. It's been moved a couple times, but it belongs to the son, we think, of the family that bought the house originally, the Ferguson family. So it says, I don't know if you can read the writing outside, WT 285 CU20 for Robert C. Ferguson, also known as Bob. We think Bob was the one who sold it, who owned it from 1980 to 2013. First Lieutenant NAMCR, and then there's a number 064517, Kaywood, New York. That's our location, 1 of 5. So we were told that one of them was in Korea, I believe. So this is maybe left over for Korea. From his service there. It's huge and it's in pretty good shape. The bottom of it needs to be cleaned out. It looks like they were storing insulation in here. But aside from some damage there on the sidebar, this is actually in really good shape. Good morning, friends. It is the last sunny, beautiful day for the next 5 days.
Today's objectives in and amongst work obligations are threefold. One is to move the bark pile. The second is to pick up all the pieces of kindling and put them in the kindling box. And the third is to move the too big to burn in their current state logs.
Objective the first, successful. Is it elegant? No. Is it functional? Yes. Honestly, if it was just dirt and debris, I would be scraping it out, but there's chunks of insulation and tinfoil or something.
I love work that is quick and visually satisfying. Now all we need to do is level this bad boy.
If you are new to the channel, we discovered these on the property down by the old barn. They are used as drainage tiles. We have 8 or 10 of them. You can see that they're slightly curved on the top, even though that's not completely level. Hopefully that's enough to get it up above the surface level. So now I'm going to try to lever this thing over there and onto those. And if I run into trouble, we may have to wait for Peter to get off his meeting, but I think I can do it. Ta-da! She's a little rocky, which is not surprising given that the tops of those are curved and the ground is uneven. Let me dig around in the rock pile back there and see if I can find something that might level those out just a bit. I found 4 bricks that I think are going to work. So let's give this a try.
Woohoo! Success!
I love it when a plan comes together. That is exactly the amount of stuff I had over there, which is pretty fulfilling.
The only thing I need now to complete objective number 2 is the lid, and for that I'll need Peter's assistance. Constructing this lid actually proved to be both easier and harder than I expected. It was easy to layer the 2 pieces of tin over one of our spare pieces of plywood and offset them such that the nail holes won't let water in. What was difficult was bending the tin over at the edge. We ended up using one of those stumps that you see behind there, and Peter basically leaned his entire weight on the stump to get it to bend over on that one side.
So is it elegant and refined? Not yet. But is it functional and free? Yes. And I would rather use materials that are already here and repurpose them and give them a new raison d'etre than go buy something new and let this stuff just sit unused. And on that same topic, we're going to reuse the bark and little bits of wood. Objective number 4, pick up the bark, is done. It's here. It's obviously not quite as finely chopped as the shredded stuff from last fall, but birds of a feather and all that jazz. Now that's the sight we like to see. A yard that looks like a yard and not a woodlot.
I was feeling a couple of things at this particular point. One, obviously thrilled. It's been a really productive day. Getting all of the woodlot off the front lawn was a major step forward and took about 8 hours longer than I expected to. On the other hand, this part of the yard is one of the dirtiest parts of the yard, and it's a lot bigger than the backside of the house, which also had a lot of trash, because this is the part of the yard where everybody walked back and forth when they were working on the house. Everything was brought in to the house via the front porch. And so rather than being able to walk back and forth as I had done on all the previous spaces, I actually ended up sitting on the ground and working my way through this, which meant that the delusion I had about, oh, today's the last day I'm going to have to do this, and then tomorrow I can plant, lasted for another 12 days.
The end of Saturday, day I don't even know how many, of working on the yard. I went all the way to where you can barely see in the distance. The brick is actually in A line with the corner post of the house. So everything that side of the house except the barn area is done.
So after yesterday, 2 things were apparent. A, it was going to take me forever to go back and forth lengthwise along this space. And B, I was wasting a lot of time trying to figure out where my pathway of pickup had occurred. And so I had the rather genius idea of A, using these copious amounts of outdoor extension cords we have to mark out laneways. So I didn't have to think about where I was looking. I could just follow the lines. And B, I decided to go up and down the slope of the property rather than from the camera out to the driveway and back. And my goodness, did that make such a difference.
The nice thing about doing it this way is that this goes a lot faster. So even though I am going up and down, it still feels like I'm accomplishing more when I get to the end of a row and can turn around and come back. It is a most pleasant evening to be out, although I gotta tell you, I could happily never look for another piece of trash in the dirt again. This morning, we weren't even to the crook of that, and now we're all the way up here. Well, friends, here we end the evening. I actually got farther than I thought. If one gives up picking up all the tiny paint chips, as one must here along the house because there's just too many, I actually made pretty good time. So it's 8:40. I've been out here for 3 hours. I finished the little patch down there that I was doing in the dusk last night. There were a few things to pick up. You guys see that? It's a rib bone, I think. Pulled that out of the ground yesterday. I started up there and I've got all the way down here. So there are basically 4 of these supports between the end of the porch behind me and up where it meets the trash can. So I finished one section and I'm almost, I'm 2/3 of the done with the second section. If I had actually finished the section here, I would be halfway area-wise down the length of the porch, which is amazing. See you for the next installment of what feels to be a never-ending adventure. Well, friends, I've been out here for a couple hours, and as you can see, I have been uncovering a few things. These are things that were left under the porch, and I didn't really quite realize how messy it is under here. That I'm letting the ants disembark from overnight. I have no idea what that is. There's boards, there's cement blocks. There's underneath these is a piece of plywood, which I think is just on the ground. So my intention is to pull all this stuff out anyway and move it elsewhere for storage. I'm not going to do that tonight. The happy news is that I finished all the way up to that post, which was the halfway mark. And I've done a pretty good job here all the way up to that edge, which is about 3/4 of this section.
So even with the addition of the extra stuff under the porch, I was on a roll, and I was really sure that this time I was this close to finishing the job.
The absolute priority is to get this pickup done today. I am so over picking up trash in this yard. It has taken, you guys have lost track, honestly. It's somewhere between 50 and 60 hours to complete this job. So I'm picking up right here where this orange thing is. So you can see I don't have that much left to do square area wise. It's basically this orange thing out to here, down to that block, and down to there. And then I need to pull out all the stuff that's underneath there and rehome it in the basement. Ta 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 ta. It is finished. And you might say, why, Felicity, it looks awfully dark there. It is 9 o'clock. It is a half hour after sunset. It has been raining gently for the last half hour, but I really wanted to finish this. As usual, my predictions for how long this would take would be entirely inaccurate. I started at noon. It is now 9 o'clock. I have had maybe about an hour of breaks total. And I thought this whole thing would take me 4 hours, and it's taken me, 8? And I'm still not quite done. I still need to move those windows that are under there, but it's raining and cold, and I'm hungry. So it's done. It's done. Ah, now that is the sight one wants to see from coming in from working out in the cold. It's warm. It's delightful. Stand here and let my fingers thaw. Perfect.
It is finished! Woo! I cannot tell you how amazing I felt to wake up the day after I finished and realize that I was done. 65 hours is what it took me. Now, that does include cleaning out underneath the deck, which was not part of my original plan. And it does include way more time spent working on the wood pile than I had thought. Guys, I thought that trash pickup was going to take me a weekend. And instead, it took 5 weeks, pretty much nothing but eating, sleeping, working, picking up trash, waiting for it not to rain. We had days that were gray and cloudy and drizzly in the 40s and 50s. We hit 80, which is crazy, more than once in this same amount of time. And after the weird early onset of spring in April, which was early by about 2 weeks, everything dragged at the end of May and kind of got backed up. And that's been the way it's been the rest of the summer. But anyway, I'm so excited that the trash pickup is finally done. Which means we can move on to the next massive project, which is trying to plant out the yard, which is now exponentially more difficult because things have grown there while I've been working on the trash pickup. But I 100% do not regret spending the time to pick up that trash. It is going to make such a huge difference as the years go by and there's less and less of it to pick up. I'm really looking forward to reaping the benefits of that work in future years. So thanks very much for sticking around. Let me know if you like this longer format video. I know you guys have been asking for one, so if this is what you had in mind, please let me know, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye for now.